This will be the most complete and clear guide on football boot outsoles that you will ever watch. And if it's not, I'll just make a better one in the future. So the outsoles we'll be looking at are firm ground, soft ground, artificial ground, AstroTurf, and indoor. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each type of playing surface, and I'm going to use a traffic light system to explain which outsole is okay to use on which playing surface. Starting off with dry to damp grass pitches, the only green for this playing surface would be firm ground, as they are the intended outsole for this playing surface. The only red would be indoor outsoles, as they do not provide enough grip between the boot and the grass. Now, AstroTurf, AG and soft ground are all amber, and I'll go through each of them and explain why they're amber, and it all has to do with how wet the playing surface is. So like I said, it's dry to damp, so it's damp enough so there's a bit of water on the pitch, but it's not like your boots are sinking into the ground and you're slipping everywhere, should I say. So it depends. So if it's very dry, it should be okay, and you can get away with using AG or AstroTurf trainers on dry grass pitches. But if it is, I'd say, maybe a bit more on the damp side, you can get away with using the soft ground. Now, if it is too dry, you can't use soft ground because the studs won't penetrate the ground. They won't even sink into the grass, should I say. So what that would mean is that you get a lot of stud pressure and the soles of your foot would hurt a lot. Now, if it's too damp and you use the AG outsole or the AstroTurf outsole on a grass pitch, it'll be too slippery, and then there won't be enough traction between the outsole and the ground surface, so you'll be slipping everywhere. Next, we have wet to muddy grass football pitches. Now, the only green for this surface would of course be soft ground, as they are the intended outsole for this playing surface. Now, the only amber would be firm ground for this one. So sometimes you can get away with wearing firm ground on wet football pitches, but it depends how wet or muddy the pitch is. So if it's more towards the drier side than it is to, like, you know, classic Sunday league, you can get away with it, as you won't be slipping as much and there will be enough traction for you to keep your balance when you're playing football for the majority of the time. But if it gets a bit too wet and too muddy, so maybe the kind of indicators is, do your studs completely sink for the firm ground outsole? Do they completely sink into the ground? Or when you step, is there any mud left? And if there isn't any mud left, that means maybe it's a bit too wet, or like the kind of consistency of the mud will be a good indicator as well. But really and truly, I would tend to go with a firm ground rather than a firm ground if the pitch is too wet. Now, AG, AstroTurf and indoor, they are all red. They do not provide enough traction between the boots and the playing surface for you to keep your balance, should I say, when you're playing football, and you'll be slipping everywhere if you were to wear these on a wet or muddy grass football pitch. So these are absolute no-go. On to artificial pitches, or 3G, 4G, turf, whatever you want to call it. The stuff where it has the small black rubber bits that get stuck in your boots. We're talking about those pitches this time. So in terms of green, of course, AG, as those are the intended surface or outsole for that surface. And red, of course, in this situation would be indoor, and as well as that, soft ground as well. Those are the two absolute no-goes for this surface. Now, when it comes to amber, you have firm ground and you have AstroTurf, but like some of the other ones before, it depends on how, if it's rained and it's a bit wet on the surface, or if it's very, very dry. And we also have to talk about stud shape as well. I'll probably make a follow-up video to this, going into more depth about this. But yeah, so when it comes to firm ground boots on AstroTurf, or on turf pitches, sorry, we've all done it before, and really and truly we shouldn't. But you can get away with it with a special type of stud shape. So if you use boots with like rounded conical studs, I think that should be okay, as it allows for like rotational movement. But if you have boots like have aggressive chevroned blades, I would not risk using them on 3G, 4G. Why, you ask? Because of the shape of the stud, it doesn't allow for rotational movement, and because there'll be a lot of traction between the surface And the boot, it can be very dangerous when you're running and changing directions quickly, as it puts a lot of stress on your joints and you're more likely to suffer serious injuries. So if you're going to use a firm ground outsole on a turf or 3G, 4G pitch, whatever, I would recommend using or getting a boot that has rotational round studs for rotational stability. If you look at the AG outsole, normally they have shallow rounded studs for this exact reason. So if you're gonna use, like I said, if you're gonna use a FG outsole on turf pitches, make sure you're using one with round conical studs as opposed to ones with aggressive chevron shaped blades with flat surfaces. Let's talk about concrete pitches. So these are the types you see in cages, in playgrounds, for example. You know what? There's actually, I wouldn't say there's any green for this particular surface. So if you're a street baller, I'm sorry. I'd say that because there's no outsole that I feel that is made specifically for this surface. I'd say the only two ambers for the surface would be AstroTurf and indoor. But yeah, again, like all the others, it depends on how wet or dry if it is. So if it's rained, you're going to be slipping anywhere between indoor or AstroTurf, but if it's dry, those should be okay to use. AG, FG and SG, they are all red. Like I said before, they do not provide the correct amount of traction to play on these surfaces. Now the last playing surface I'm going to talk about would be indoor. So indoor could be like a futsal pitch, or it could be sometimes if your school's got a gym, you know, the ones that they use for basketball, volleyball, whatever sports, those kind of surfaces. So like kind of wooden panel floors maybe, or that's probably the best way, or laminates, that's probably the best way to explain that type of surface. So, well, for the most part anyway. So for those ones, it would only be indoor. That's the only green for this one. I guess amber might be AstroTurf, but you know, sometimes you get those like very strict PE teachers who said, oh, don't wear AstroTurf on this because it'll damage your flooring, so that's why it's an amber. It's a bit pedantic, but yeah. And then of course the remaining are all red, as they're not that unplayable, really and truly. Imagine going and playing in PE with studs on wood laminate floor, it just makes no sense. So yeah, the only green for this one would be of course indoor, as that's the intended outsole for this playing surface. And that's it for the outsole guide. I hope it was very, very clear, and if it's not, maybe there's anything I could improve on. If you have any questions, please comment them down below. And like always, if you thought the video was sublime, like the video. If you thought it was subpar, like I said, comment down below and then like the video, as it goes a very long way. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, as I make loads of videos based around football apparel and football boots. And if that's your thing, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Make sure to follow me on all my socials. There'll be TikTok, Twitter, Instagram and Twitch. And like always, thanks for watching. My name is Sub. This has been SubStanceFtbl. Peace out.